Jake Reynolds leaned against the wooden fence of his ranch, the wide expanse of land stretching out before him. The Texas sun was setting, casting an orange glow across the plains. He took a deep breath, inhaling the familiar scent of fresh hay and the earthy smell of the land he had worked on for years. It was a simple life, but it suited him. He didn't need much, just his ranch, his cattle, and the peace that came with the isolation. He had never been one for the social scene in town. Life had taught him to keep to himself. A few months had passed since the last time he had seen anyone from town. The local grocery store had a few familiar faces, but no one ever really bothered him. That was until Ella Hartley showed up on his doorstep. She looked out of place in the small town. Ella was different from the usual visitors Jake had seen. Dressed in a loose flowing dress with a canvas bag slung over her shoulder, she had an air of mystery about her. She claimed she was an artist, here for inspiration, though Jake couldn't understand why she would choose a small ranch for her muse. There wasn't much to see out here other than cattle, dirt roads, and the endless horizon. Jake tried to keep his distance. He wasn't interested in making friends, but something about Ella was different. Maybe it was the way her eyes darted around as if she were looking for something, or running from something. Or maybe it was the way she seemed to hesitate before answering questions. No matter how many times Jake asked her why she was here, she would only say, "Just looking for some quiet." Her presence became a daily routine. He'd see her on walks near the edge of his property, sketching the landscape or lost in thought. He didn't mind the quiet company, but something was always off. He couldn't put his finger on it, but Jake wasn't the kind to pry into other people's business. Still, it bothered him. It was one evening, as the sun began to dip low, that everything changed. Jake had just finished his chores for the day when he heard the sound of footsteps approaching from the direction of the old barn. He turned to see Ella stumbling toward him, her face pale and her eyes wide. "Something was wrong. Are you okay?" Jake asked, rushing toward her. Ella reached out to steady herself but collapsed into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, her body trembling. "Hey, what's going on? Are you hurt?" Jake asked, his voice a mix of concern and confusion. She shook her head weakly. I'm fine. Just need to sit down." Jake helped her to a nearby chair under the porch. Her hands were shaking as she tried to steady herself. He knelt down in front of her, trying to catch her gaze. "Ella, what happened? You don't look well." She closed her eyes, her breathing shallow. "It's nothing." "Really?" Her voice was shaky. Jake wasn't convinced. "Tell me what's going on." She hesitated for a long moment before speaking. It's my past. Someone's looking for me, Jake, someone dangerous." The words hung heavy in the air. Jake's mind raced as he tried to make sense of what she was saying. "Who?" he asked, his protective instincts kicking in. "What do you mean, dangerous?" Ella bit her lip, trying to hold back tears. "It's someone from my past. Someone I tried to escape from. He found me, and now he's going to hurt me." Jake stood up, his muscles tensing. "Whoever this person is, you don't have to worry. I won't let anything happen to you." She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and gratitude. "I didn't want to drag you into this. I just needed a place to be alone, but it's not safe here anymore. I have to go." "No," Jake said, his voice firm. "You're not going anywhere." But Ella shook her head, her eyes darting toward the horizon. "I can't stay here, Jake. It's too dangerous." Before Jake could say anything more, she stood up quickly, her movements shaky as she tried to walk away. But just as she reached the gate, she stumbled again, this time falling to her knees. Jake hurried to her side. "Ella, you're not going anywhere." He gently helped her to her feet. "You're not leaving until we figure this out." "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't want to bring this on you. I didn't mean to." Jake's heart softened as he looked at her. He could see the pain in her eyes, the weight of whatever she was running from. It wasn't just the man who had found her. It was the shame, the fear, the past she was trying to outrun. "Ella," Jake said softly, his hand resting on her shoulder, "you don't have to face this alone." She took a deep breath, her eyes welling up with tears. "I don't deserve your kindness. I should leave." "You'll be better off without me." Jake didn't know what to say. His mind was still spinning, trying to piece together the situation. But he couldn't let her leave like this, not now. Not after everything she had just told him. "Let me help," Jake said, his voice firm. "You don't have to go anywhere." Stay here tonight. We'll figure it out. Ella's eyes searched his face for a long moment, and then with a small nod she finally agreed. Okay. Okay, I'll stay. But only for tonight. I won't drag you into my mess any longer than I have to. The night fell quickly. Ella stayed in the small guest room Jake had prepared, but Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about everything Ella had said, about her past, about the danger she was in, and about the strange, unspoken connection between them. He didn't know her well, but there was something in her that drew him in. The more he tried to understand her, the more confused he became. The next morning, after a restless night, Jake was working in the barn when he found something unexpected. As he went to collect the tools from the guest room, he noticed a small locket lying on the windowsill. It was simple, made of silver with delicate engravings, but something about it caught his eye. Curious, he picked it up and opened it. Inside the locket was a picture of a young girl, maybe 5 or 6, and on the other side was a note, written in elegant handwriting. To my forever love. Jake! Jake's heart skipped a beat. The note wasn't just any note. It was his name. The girl's name he didn't recognize, but the message was unmistakable. His mind raced. Why would Ella have a locket like this? Was there something he didn't know? He stood there, staring at the locket, trying to make sense of it all. But just as he was about to walk out of the room, he heard footsteps behind him. Ella. She stood in the doorway, her face pale as she looked at the locket in his hands. I didn't mean for you to find that, she whispered. Jake's heart pounded. Ella! What's this? Why does it have my name? She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. I didn't want you to know. I never wanted you to find out. Jake's stomach churned with confusion and worry. Ella, please. You can't keep running from the truth. What's going on? Her eyes filled with tears as she took a step closer. It's not my baby. I swear it. But it's ours. It's my daughter, Jake, your daughter. Jake stood still, staring at the locket in his hand, his mind racing. The words inside felt like a punch to the gut. Your daughter. His daughter. The thought didn't seem to fit into his reality. He had never known about a child, never even suspected there was a possibility. Ella's face was pale. Her eyes locked onto the locket in Jake's hand, as if it held the key to everything that had gone wrong. She stepped forward, her fingers trembling, and slowly reached for the locket. Ella, Jake said, his voice rough. What do you mean, our daughter? You're telling me you've been carrying this secret for all these years? Ella swallowed hard, her eyes brimming with tears. She nodded, but the weight of her words seemed too heavy for her to bear. I didn't mean to hide it from you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't know how to tell you, Jake. The truth is, I left not because I didn't want her or didn't want you, but because I thought it was safer. I thought it was best for both of you. Jake looked at her, trying to process her words. The silence between them grew thick as the air in the room seemed to shift. His thoughts were swirling. A child, his child. It felt unreal. I don't understand, Jake muttered. You left and I didn't know. I thought we had something real back then. But you just left without a word. Why? Ella closed her eyes, tears spilling over. She stepped back and sank into the chair by the window. Her hands folded in her lap, she spoke in a voice that was barely above a whisper. I was scared, she said. Scared for you. Scared for me. Scared for the baby. When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how you would react. I didn't know if you were ready. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I left. I thought I could do it on my own. I thought I could protect her alone. Jake's heart tightened as he listened. He had never known the kind of pain Ella was describing. The decision to leave him, to leave their child, was one he could never have imagined her making. Ella continued, her voice shaky but steadying as she spoke. When I left, I promised myself that I would make sure she had a good life. I moved far away, changed my name, and tried to build a life for her, but the past never stayed buried. That's why I came here, Jake. That's why I came back to you. I never expected to run into you, but the moment I did, I knew I couldn't keep lying. I couldn't keep running. Jake felt a lump form in his throat. He wasn't sure how to feel. Anger, betrayal, sadness, confusion. His emotions were all tangled up inside. But as he looked at Ella, he saw the pain in her eyes, the regret. And there was something else, a longing, a hope that had been buried for too long, so what now? Jake asked, his voice soft, though his mind was still racing. Ella stood up, wiping away a tear. I don't know, Jake. I don't know what's next. I just wanted you to know the truth. I never wanted to hurt you. I just thought it was safer this way. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words pressing down on him. And now? What happens now, Ella? You've told me everything. What about her? Ella hesitated, her eyes falling to the floor. I don't know. She's just 5, Jake. She's scared of people. She doesn't understand why I've kept her away from her father. And the worst part? The reason I've been running is because of him. Jake frowned, the mention of him bringing a cold shiver down his spine. Who? The man from my past, Ella replied, her voice trembling. The one who hurt me before. He's been looking for us. For me, but more importantly, for her. And now that he knows where I am, he's not going to stop until he finds us. Jake's blood ran cold. The danger Ella spoke of wasn't just some vague threat. It was real, and now it was much closer than he had imagined. Where is she? Jake asked, his protective instincts kicking in. Where's my daughter? She's at a safe house a few miles away, Ella replied quickly. I don't want her to be involved in any of this. She's just a little girl, Jake. I don't want her to get hurt. I don't care, Jake said firmly. She's my daughter, and I'm going to protect her. I don't care what it takes. We'll get her and keep her safe. You won't have to run anymore, Ella, I promise you. Ella looked at him, her expression torn between relief and disbelief. Jake, you're serious? Jake nodded, his jaw set. I'm serious. She's my daughter, and I'm not letting anything happen to her. You've already done enough, Ella. Now let me help. A tear slid down Ella's cheek, but this time it wasn't from sorrow. It was from gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for giving me a chance to make this right. Together they left the house and climbed into Jake's old truck. The drive was quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts. Ella was silent, gazing out the window as they passed through the dusty roads. Jake's hands gripped the wheel, determination setting his course. When they reached the small cabin where Ella had hidden her daughter, the sun was beginning to set. The light in the sky was soft, casting a golden hue on everything. Jake's heart pounded in his chest. He had no idea what to expect. He didn't even know what he would say to her. But when the door opened, and a small, curious face appeared, Jake's heart melted. The little girl, with wide blue eyes and sandy brown hair, looked at him for a long moment. Then her gaze flickered to Ella, then back to Jake. She didn't speak, but there was something in her eyes, a recognition as if she knew that this man, this stranger, was someone important. Jake crouched down to her level. Hey there, he said softly. I'm Jake, I'm your dad. The girl blinked at him, her expression uncertain. But then she reached out a small hand and Jake took it gently in his. He could feel the warmth of her hand in his, the bond forming instantly. In that moment, everything clicked into place. This was his daughter. This little girl with her shy smile and big eyes was his flesh and blood. Ella watched from the doorway, a tear slipping down her cheek. But this time it was a tear of relief. I'm so sorry, Ella whispered to Jake, her voice full of emotion. I never meant for you to miss this. For her to miss this. Jake looked up at her, the weight of the past few days settling in his chest. He was angry, yes. But what mattered now was the future that he would have with Ella and his daughter. You don't have to apologize anymore, Jake said, his voice steady. We're going to fix this, together. And for the first time in years, Jake felt a sense of hope stirring within him. He had a family now, and he would do whatever it took to protect them.